Hello, welcome to the morning program, the Dailies and Echo Television, your news and current affair program, where we look up some stories on the papers and see how we relate to them. We will encourage you to keep a date with us on Facebook and YouTube, and then drop your comment on any of the story that you think is of interest to you. I am Salah Shadasham, and I'll be doing the program together with Rachel Tanzi. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Sarah.
All right, we'll go straight into the papers, starting with the Nigerian News Direct newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, $500 million Nigeria-Germany Memorandum of Understanding to curb 50 MCBF of gas flaring daily. Opposition senators protest appointment of new Senate minority leaders. Airtel Smart Cash clinched 22 awards at Lagos Advertising Festival. The big story on the paper, National Shipping Line to curb $10 billion annual loss to ship charter. This is a report coming from the federal government. You can find details on page 12. Alleged misappropriation. We will not join issues. Our commitment remains best interest for Lagosians. A statement coming from Sanwo-Olu. Service chiefs lament poor welfare, seek legislative support to tackle insecurity. You can find details of the story on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty, where we have federal coming from Rivers State. Police take over assembly as lawmakers hold separate seating. Appeal court verdict. Obasanjo rejects sacking of governor, says 3 judges shouldn't upturn million voters' decision. You can look up that story inside the paper. And on Nigeria-Germany partnership, Tinubu witnesses signing of $500 million renewable energy park gas export agreement. The economic partnership between Nigeria and Germany witnessed further expansion and strengthening as 2 important agreements were signed between Nigerian and German businesses yesterday. You can look up that story in the paper. Ex-Minister Abba Muru emerges Senate Minority Leader. How he lost election for not bribing INEC and police. This is still coming from the former President Obasanjo. And coming from Abia State, Governor spent 928 million naira on meals, welfare packages in 3 months, 25 million naira on public schools. We're beginning to see more states are coming up with what they have been spending ever since we had the report of reckless spending. We're seeing them giving us what they have been using the money for. We will make electronic transmission of result mandatory. This is coming from the Senate. You can do well to look up that story inside the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Rivers lawmakers loyal to Fubara Wike hold separate plenaries. Court orders assembly faction to suspend further sittings. You can start with the details on the front page. Federal government revokes 1,633 mining titles, reads Riot Act to illegal miners. The big story on the paper, military asks federal government to tackle Finland over Southeast insecurity, says country encouraging separatist leader Simon Ekpa. Judiciary partly contributing to insecurity across the country. IGP says he inherited abandoned. I will motivate police force. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 29. Plateau Assembly gets new Speaker, Deputy Asule from resign. Uproar in Senate as Akpabio washes hands of choice of minority leaders. Lagos keeps an open book. Procurement controversy misrepresents truth. A statement coming from the governor himself. We didn't spend 927 million naira in 3 months feeding OT family. A statement coming from Abia government. I believe that we are beginning to see governors and different states defending all the information concerning misappropriation of funds and the things that they have been spending in the name of the government house expenditures. Tinubu will bring boom to creative industry, Shetima assures. The writer under the story says, apologizes for past administration's neglect of creative economy. Upload of results by INEC will be made compulsory, a statement coming from Senate, to ensure election petitions are concluded before swearing in. And at the downside of the paper, NNPCL not able to pump oil from Warri to Benin in 22 years, a statement coming from Kyari. You can find details of his statement on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
Richard, Nigerians will ask a question right now that Senate is saying they are going to make it mandatory. Was it optional in the first place? It wasn't optional. That is what I believe. If it was optional, that is to say that every law in the Electoral Act would be optional as well. I mean, the FCT. It's part contributing to the security that sort of elections that we've been having. A lot of people are taking it for protest, even to say the outcome of the election. A lot of people felt that this is our mandate, so why is the court turning all of this thing? So I believe that it's high time we get to a point whereby we do the right thing that is expected of us to do as a country, where we'll see that starting from every arm of the government, the executive, the judiciary, the legislative, everybody will know his or her role. Sure. Because you and I have said it here over a number of times, the fact that we're beginning to see, it seems there is no separation of power. We begin to see this arm is getting into the other person. The judiciary seems like not to be independent on their own. It's like they seems to wait for a particular arm to tell them what to do and how to act. And no wonder people are no longer having regard for the judiciary anymore. So we are hoping with all of this in our ear, questions would be that was it optional in the first place?
Was it optional, Sele? That is the question. How would something that gulped over 100 billion naira be optional in the first place? How are we spending money? This is what doesn't make sense for me. And the more we sit down and we talk about this and we analyze this, the more we just see lawmakers, leaders that are not willing to grow Nigeria. How can something eat as much as over 100 billion? Because we saw the breakdown of what the election was going to cost before the election, and this digital, the iRev, the Beavers, everything was gulping the chunk, over 30% of what INEC was going to spend for the 2023 election. And yet you sit down and you said it wasn't mandatory for INEC in the first place to transmit this election after so much money has gone into it. And then you wonder who are we deceiving in this country? Are we really going to grow or not? And that's we'll keep emphasizing the fact that when you want certain things to happen, you have to put them into policies and law. Don't leave it at the whether the person chooses or not to do certain things. I mean, I won't stop overemphasizing on things like this. It's really sad that it has to be after so much money has been spent on certain things that you are now coming as a Senate to say that it is going to be compulsory. It was compulsory from the beginning. But because you are selfish, because you like to have an unfair election, you sat down and allow certain things to roll, because by hook or crook, you want to see certain people in power. You want to see certain things playing out. You want to see all the things that shouldn't happen in the first place happen. You sat down and you allowed it. And now that you have finally gained the power by all means, then you're sitting down and saying it's going to be compulsory. Well, Sele, this is talk and it's very cheap. I am waiting for them to see it passing into a bill and a law, making it another electoral act come 2027, that INEC will have no option but to transmit election electronically, because billions have gone into it and enough of the money wastage, and then people feeling there's nothing wrong with that. This is corruption at its peak, and I believe Nigerians shouldn't condone it. If our lawmakers will sit down and not take it seriously, we are going to keep hammering on this until the necessary organizations and body wake up and say, you know what, enough is enough. You need to start doing right by Nigerians in this country.
You know what I think what I'm liking about apart from the fact that they are saying they are going to make it mandatory, is the fact that they're saying every election petition have to be concluded before
Before,
it's swearing.
yes.
And I think this is where I'm loving it more, because if you look at it, it seems as if every election right now, almost most of the state election, gubernatorial election, are into court presently.
Yes.
So you now ask a question: why do we have to go to court? I mean, the court is not even supposed to have a business in this election whatsoever, because this is about Nigerians just going to exercise their civil responsibility,
Yes.
and then at the end of the day, we are hoping that the civil, commission, the body will just tell us, yes, this is the winner, this is the loser, and we're done. But right now, it's becoming a do or die affair that we even have to resort to going to the court to be sure that things are done. Yesterday, we saw in the papers where a lot of judges were complaining that a lot of people are dropping charms
In the court,
so you
yes.
begin to wonder, Richard, it's becoming a do or die affair for a lot of people. And I'm hoping that we will grow to that place. No wonder former, head of state and president is saying democracy is not working in this country. I mean, Richard, looking at the money a lot of states are spending, coming out to give us reasons why they're doing that. Lagos state government telling us they had to use this amount of money to get SUV because of the realities of things. Are we also cognizant of the fact that Nigerians are also living in the same reality?
In this same. So why don't we
So
order the
why
SUV
don't
for
we
every
all-
Nigerian?
Not even the SUV, Rachel, but then let's look at the welfare. We've been talking about the palliative, and it seems it's not a broken record. I don't know where is Labour right now. They seems to be quiet after that 2 days strike they went to. Where are
Yes.
they right now? The main aim of the strike was supposed to be for the people. Now you see where I say, Richard, that when you look at it thoroughly, it does not look as if it was for selfish interests, because they are no longer speaking, and this is where we're supposed to be hearing their voice loud about the reason why a lot of things are not going well. Governors have been brought down from their seat, mandate of people. This is what you're supposed to be speaking about, but you're not speaking. Rather, we're seeing civil organization, budget are the ones suing the president, and a lot of things happening. Well, we just hope, just like we said, talk is cheap. We hope that Senate will follow this up.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Federal government revokes 1,633 mining licenses, vows to sanitize the sector. You can find that on page 321. Nigeria, Germany signed $500 million renewable energy and gas deals. And on insecurity, military blames forex, demands special court for terrorists. You can find that on page 2. The big story here says states spend 1.7 trillion naira on trips, meals, others, and borrow 988 billion naira. The writer for that story, states borrow 988.48 billion naira from banks and others in 9 months. Governors get over 87 billion naira for security votes. Undo denies 7.3 billion naira diversion. So you can find more detail of this story. It's quite of interest on page 23. Take a look at the picture story on the front page, where we can see ghetto in paradise. Abuja peoples learn in shit, endure dumb order. Now, Rachel, our governors are spending. This is not the first time we're seeing such a picture story coming up on our paper, where we're seeing a lot of students. I mean, this is a sector we're supposed to actually give it a lot of time. And Rachel, I cannot help but always make a reference to one of the lawmakers we had in the 9th Assembly, where he said maybe it's high time they make it a law that if you are a serving governor, let's just say you're in a public office, your child should not leave the shores of Nigeria to school. And if only that was the law, Rachel, Nigeria would have been better than the way it is presently. Just take a look at these peoples, all in a way of trying to get education. Look at the way they're sitting. The teachers are not even well taken care of. I mean, what the government tried to do here is just to get one whiteboard. We are seeing a lot of them are sitting on the floor. The environment is not even, what are we saying? Where's the Ministry of Education? Who is the commissioner in charge of this? Even though this is in the FCT, which we know it's not really a state per se. But then it does have a lot of people who represent it as well. So what is the government doing about this? No wonder the caption here is saying ghetto in paradise. This is supposed to be the FCT. This is supposed to be our capital. This is supposed to be, immediately I get into FCT, it should give you an idea how the whole of Nigeria is. But reverse is the case, Rachel. Sometimes when you go to a particular place in the FCT, you wonder. So right now the question will be, what is the government of the day doing about the situation of the students?
I mean, Sela, this is the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. It is a state where it houses everything. And to be honest, this is not supposed to be seen in Abuja whatsoever. It might sound like we're giving them, we're setting the bar high. It's not. This shouldn't be seen because the caption is just Ghetto in Paradise and it's perfect actually. Because who would believe that the Federal Capital Territory of a country like Nigeria will have students learning under these kinds of condition and even teachers? Learning is not happening here, Sele. I don't believe learning is happening here. This is just education taking place. Yeah, students in a classroom, there's a teacher.
Richard, this is not even a
But
classroom.
well, it's for them, for these pupils, it's a classroom. So let's respect these pupils that went to school and this is their classroom. We can say, of course, it's not Sele, it's not anything close to a classroom. But this is just education. But I don't believe whatsoever that learning is happening here. And this is why I said I am looking forward from the beginning when Wike, the minister of the Federal Capital Territory, came and his concentration was just on revoking C of O's. I would demolish this and demolish that. I said, when are we going to grow above this when it comes to the Federal Capital Territory? Because it's like every minister that comes is only bothered about properties, is only bothered about showing power in whose property he can seize or whose building they can destroy. That is all. I keep saying that the Federal Capital Territory need more, and this is the more that it needs. That let it be that for every Nigerian that finds their way to the Federal Capital Territory, it should be like a Lagos state where you can hustle and make it, where you can find school, you can find business, you can find some kind of sustainability in the Federal Capital Territory. For example, I keep saying, why are we having slums? Rather than thinking of whose property to seize and destroy, why are we not having housing plans for low-income earners in the Federal Capital Territory? Why is the federal government not thinking about school projects in the federal government, in the Federal Capital Territory for low-income earners, for students like this? Why are we having this? And when you are the minister and you go in there and you're just thinking of show of power, this will continue to happen because you are not thinking what is the next step for the capital of the country. What is the next step for the people in Abuja? You are not thinking that. All I keep seeing is leaders coming and going that are only concerned of show of power. Is it important for certain illegal structures to be out? Yes. Is it important to seize whatever property? Is it important to maybe go with the master plan of Abuja? It is important. But I believe that it has grown to a certain level that certain things should now be number one and top priority when it comes to the FCT, such as housing plans for low-income earners, and then school. Now we're seeing that education also is suffering in that area. So I mean, Sele, we really need leaders that would truly look into the need of people. And when we talk about people, the masses, stop focusing on the rich alone. Focus on the masses and try to do something for Nigeria. I mean, until we get to that level, we will not be seeing growth significantly as we should see in the country.
Richard, that's why yesterday when we were having during the afternoon show, I made a comment about the fact that maybe, just maybe, we should go back to the way we were before we had colonial leaders, where we had every leader would come together, we clean the community together, we look for how things can work together. Because I tend not to understand that the media were able to go there and give us pictures. And then am I supposed to assume that the government of the day is not aware of this? This is $1 million question, and I'm hoping that we have not just answers, but the right answers. And the answers should come in such a form that the government will address things like this. Each time when you see people telling the government, you said it when you were, canvassing for Nigerians' vote. I will do this. So why don't you do it? You're aware of some of the challenge on ground already. This is not beyond your power. I mean, if you can spend so much for as big as 43 million naira for vegetables, imagine what that 43 million naira would do to the lives of these peoples here. And we spend quite a huge amount of money, as large as 1.7 trillion naira on trips, meals, and even borrowing from banks, and
Exactly.
yet we cannot think about the welfare of Nigerians, then I think we need to have a rethink about the
We
kind of
do.
governance we are having in this country. Let's take a look at other stories still on the Punch newspaper. $35 billion needed to execute concrete road project, coming from Umahi. You can find that on page 30. Vandal to die by hanging, accomplice bank 16 years. You can find that on page 5, coming from Lagos State. Sanwo-Olu denies fraud assembly, others probe. You can find more detail of that, and I hope not just in Lagos State, but in other states as well. The assembly should go probe the way the government are spending, the governors actually spending the money of the state. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
Nigeria's rig count drops 13% as oil output rises to 1.4 barrel per day, 1.4 million barrel per day. You can find details on page 19. Brutally frank Nigeria doomed without restructuring federalism. This is coming from Clark, Adebanjo, Osedu, Anya, Akinyemi, Utomi, and others. You can find details of their statements on page 9. Overturning Kano Zamfara Plateau voters' decision in court, unacceptable, statement coming from Obasanjo. Nigeria, Germany signed $500 million renewable energy gas deals. More details can be found on page 8. The big story on the paper, why insecurity is not going away yet. Statement coming from the service chiefs, the writer saying warders assisting imprisoned Boko Haram insurgents to operate. This is a report coming from the CDS, says armed forces underfunded. And adds Finnish government protecting Simon Epa, alleges Epa sabotaging security agencies' effort in the southeast. Cost of aviation fell. Introduction of such charges affecting NAF operations. This is coming from the air chief. I met battered police force. A statement coming from the IGP. Laments police personnel grossly inadequate. Insecurity will soon be over. A statement coming from the defense minister. Security, welfare of people, primary purpose of government, coming from Speaker Abbas. And we have declared national emergency on kidnapping. Huriwa urges Tinubu. You can find more details on page 5. And honestly, Sele, this lamenting has been going on for a while, and it is tiring, because I believe the past IGP can say the same thing for the past administration. What is the way forward? That is why you're put in the position. It's for the solution. Exactly. We know the problem. We know you met a battered security force. We know this person and that person is into insecurity. A common man knows this in Nigeria. You are there for solution. What is the way forward? And this is our concern all the time, that we keep seeing the problem. We know the problem. The problems are not new to us. These issues are nothing new. But can you tell us the solution? Maybe we want to see the IGP saying the way forward. Okay, police officers are not plenty, are not much, are inadequate. What is the way forward? Recruitment. I mean, we have workforce. We see the president boasting about our educated workforce and youth workforce. So are we only waiting for Germans to finally come and employ us, or can't we start the employment here to have adequate people? What are we saying? Okay, if you are seeing that warders are assisting imprisoned Boko Haram, dismiss those warders or jail them also, because they've become criminals. Why are you talking about the problems rather than the solution? And this is where the problem is. We hammer more on the problem, Sele, than always talking about the way forward, rather than listing out the things you're planning to do. You're listing out what Nigerians already know, forgetting the fact that you are there for the solution to solve the problem in front of you.
Rachel, I mean, I can't say more than you've said already, but I believe that, just like you said, you are aware of all of the challenge. They're talking about the force, whether it's the police, whether it's the army, whatever. I mean, already we saw initially the service chief refused to even honor the invitation of the House from the first instance. They sent representatives, and that's just to tell us the regards we have for the legislative in the first place. I mean, that when they say come, and you can actually choose to go or not to go. But then eventually they honored the invitation and they were there presently themselves to actually give the reason why certain things are going the way they are going. And here we are seeing, trying to give us updates. Nigerians will really want to know what's happening. So it's good that they kept Nigerians updated with the reason why things are calling on Finland to put whatever they are doing, whatever talk they are having with Simon Appan. We know the issue of the IPOP over there in the south is frustrating the effort of that. And we have been here saying the fact that it is important that united we can fight this thing, but when we are divided, it's just a house divided against itself cannot stand eventually. And so I'm hoping, just like you said, beyond the talks, let us see the work. Just like you said, if the IGP is aware that they are having their short staff, then they should get more recruitment of people. Already they are resigning. Quite a number of people have to retire. Sorry, not resign, but retire, because they have gotten to that age, either 60 years or 35 years of service. So quite a number of things need to be done. But I am hoping that the government, with all of these problems that the security are bringing before them, they will give them the aid that they need. Rachel, we are aware of what the police force are going through. There are a number of things that they are supposed to be giving, but they use their money to purchase for it too. And it's not right. It's not right. You are not supposed to use your money to get ammunition or your even kids, or your kids. Everything is supposed to be given to you. But we've seen situation, Rachel, when you go to the police station to actually, maybe you want to write a statement about certain things that are missing, they will tell you we don't have lights. You need the police to come, you pay, and that's not supposed to be. And then they say police is your friend. So quite a number of things need, just like we're saying about the house cleaning, a lot of things need to be clean, Rachel. If we're talking about reforms need to take place from the very top down to the bottom. So I'm hoping that we'll see those reforms taking place presently here.
Still on the Vanguard newspaper, Rivers crisis, two factional assembly lawmakers hold separate sittings. As governor, FCT officials gave me fake CFO statement coming from Wike. You can find details on page 25. Senate in rowdy session over leadership positions. More details can be found on page 9. Federal government revokes 1,633 solid minerals titles. There is a column from Febabalola on page 20, and on sports, page 30, 2026 World Cup qualifier, Rwanda hands Super Eagles lifeline beats South Africa 2-0. We have a picture story showing crowd welcomes Kano Governor Mahmoud. Crowd welcomed Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State after the appeal court judgment recently, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Well, Richard, let's take a break at this moment to open the phone lines. We believe our viewers have quite a number of things they would like to air out concerning the story. So when we come back, we'll open the phone lines. Please stay tuned with us. Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We've been looking at a number of stories on the paper where we're seeing a number of states talking about reckless spending, giving reasons why they spend money. We're also seeing that service chiefs are coming out to give reasons why certain things are happening in regards to insecurity. Quite a number of stories on the paper. We would love to hear what your own take is about it. So do well to call us on our number that is displayed on your screen. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us and try to summarize your point in a minute so other callers can also get a room to air their views. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Selen.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper. And the first story on Daily Sun newspaper, which I would take as a big story, Ohanize Afenifere Middle Belt Forum press for state police, with the writer saying asks Tinubu to devote police to state, local government levels to fix insecurity. It can't work unless constitution is amended, coming from the ACF. It's long overdue, coming from the INC. Hurua calls for state of emergency on kidnapping. You can find detail on page 5 and 6. Uproar in Senate over appointment of minority leader. You can find that on page 28. Nigerian election product of manipulation, cancer destroying democracy. This is coming from the APC chieftain. You can find on page 27. Troops kill 7 bandits, arrest 33, recover arms and ammunition in Plateau and Kaduna raids. Detail found in the paper. Nigeria target $10 billion revenue through national shipping line annually, with detail found in the paper. And in a new twist in Plateau State, as the speaker and the deputy resign, with a new one emerging, you can find detail on page 8. Wike Fobora loyalists battle for control of Rivers Assembly, with data found in the paper. FCT minister said mid-2024 for completion of abandoned VP's residence. You can find more in the paper. And on the issue of insecurity, judiciary not helping terror war. This is a report coming from the military saying that the CDS accuses judges of endangering soldiers' lives. You can find why they said that on page 6. And downside of the paper, we're having the Nigeria, Germany sign $500 million deal on renewable energy. And we have a picture story actually, saying more about it, where we can see the president and other investors in the G20 conference there in Germany. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Nigeria, Germany signed $500 million pact for renewable energy and gas export. Why I approve NIBA redesign, a statement coming from Buhari says Nigerians hold leadership hostage. Minority leadership seats Senate in rowdy session as Labour Party kicks. The big story on Nigerian Tribune, service chiefs blame judiciary for freeing suspects. This is on insecurity. The writer says expose how warders collude with Boko Haram suspects. Express concern over activities of Simon Ekpa in the southeast. Call for special court to persecute insurgents. I inherited a battered police force, coming from the Inspector General of the Police. You can find details on page 13. PDP lost local government poll in Ogun because I rejected plots to bribe police INEC. Coming from Obasanjo, he rejected plots to bribe police and INEC in Ogun State. Nigeria targets $10 billion ship charter market as Ayatollah meets marine and blue economy stakeholders. Reps approved $73.96 as oil benchmark for 2024 fiscal year. You can find more details on page 2, but I believe that this is also up to OPEC and how it will go the subsequent year. But it's a good benchmark. Either way, it can go low depending on what happens in the year 2024 and perhaps what is going on OPEC. Lagos government didn't finance Sanwo-Olu's legal battle, statement coming from a commissioner. You can find details on page 8. NNPC unable to pump oil from Warri to Benin in 22 years, a statement coming from Kyari. You can find details on page 7. We have some picture stories where we can see from left to right the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, Chairperson, Africa, Vani D, Chain AV, and we have President Bola Tinubu, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yusuf Tugar, and then others. This picture was taken in Germany yesterday. And also at the downside, we have the managing director and CEO of the United Bank of Africa and Foundation, Mrs. Bola Atta. We are seeing them giving prizes to competition, essay competition among senior school students in Nigeria, which took place in Lagos yesterday. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On this day newspaper, NUPRC warned against plans to frustrate gas flare communalization program, with the rider meets producers to resolve issues with awardees. You can find more of that in the paper. Coming from Obi, our courts are now courts of favor, procurement, not justice. Falanai saying, contrary to misconception, appeal court upheld Kano's governor's election. You can find that in the paper. And also talking about Tinubu, he said, with stable policy, foreign investment in Nigeria now secure. With the writer says he was voted president because of his reform agenda. Pledges to build and sustain stronger Nigeria-Germany relations. $500 million renewable energy gas export pact signed. You can find more on page 12. And still coming from the defense, Boko Haram terrorists plan attack from prison with warders convenience. With the writer says 73 unmarked forests taken over by bandits. Call for extradition of Simon Appa. And then we see rising costs of aviation fuel hindering war against terrorism, and declares CAS. And then we are operating in a difficult environment, the IG is lamenting. Afenifere urges Tinubu to issue executive order for creation of multi-level police. You can find more of that story. And also we have the picture story here, the 10 Nigerian German Business Forum in Berlin, Germany. You can find detail of any other story that is of interest to you in the paper.
On Leadership newspaper, appeal court affirms Fintiri as Adamawa governor. Musawa unveils creative economy plans, assures 10% GDP contribution. Trending, Fintiri is Adamawa governor from the appeal court, and we have numbers. NSIA launches $500 million renewable investments. Non-payment of service fees, federal government revokes 1,633 mining licenses. You can find details on page 7. The big story, service chiefs passing the buck over rising insecurity. Accuse political class judiciary of not doing enough. Say they just set suspects free. We are ready to join military in fighting terrorists. A statement coming from the police. You can find more details on page 4. Wike orders review of land swap policy. We are open for alliance with PDP, Labour Party, APC. This is coming from NNPP. Federal government targets $10 billion local ship charter market. E-payment platform collapse hampers filing of cases in Lagos courts. You can find details on page 14, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, on currency swap, trade facilitation boosts CBN yuan auction to 9.22 billion. And we have unpaid fees, federal government revokes 1,633 solid mineral titles. Wike raises the alarm over fake sea of O's in Abuja. 30-year-old D1 emerges plateau speaker. You can find detail of that in the paper. And on October, price of cooking gas soared by 8.9%. You can find more on page 8. The big story, Nigerians expect magic from ill-motivated police force, says the IGP. As service chiefs seek more funding, good governance curb insecurity coming from the CDS. Issue executive order on state and local government police to strengthen national police. Afenifere tells Tinubu with detail on page 2 and 6. Appeal court judgment, 3 judges upturning millions of voters' decision unacceptable. Coming from Obasanjo, says court decision is very poor. You can find more of that on page 3. Nigeria needs $35 billion to begin concrete roads, coming from Umahi. Pipeline vandalism, national calamity, coming from the NNPC Limited. Also, we're seeing Senate session turn rowdy as PDP takes 3 minority leadership seats. It's unfair, unjust, unacceptable coming from Labour Party. Federal government moves to strengthen border security, deploy e-gate, APIS to enhance check at entry and exit point. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. We have a story at the outside of the paper. Do well to grab the paper in more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Blueprint newspaper, help return us to our land displays Basa people of Toto Beck Tinubu. You can find details on page 20. Solid Minerals Ministry revokes license of 1,633 miners. And on vandalization, over 5,000-kilometer pipelines no longer working. A statement coming from NNPCL. Obey Nigerian tax laws. FIRS boss tells foreign shipping coys this is on crude oil. The big story, federal government will boost blue economy with $10 billion from shipping. A statement coming from Ayetola. Project to be driven by strategic PPP initiative. Culture Ministry eyes $100 billion by 2030, 10% contribution to GDP. You can find details on page 6. Naira gains in parallel market as Nigeria unveils economic roadmap soon. Multi-pronged approach needed to address FX crisis, coming from an analyst. Nigeria loses 3.5 trillion naira annually to post-harvest losses. This is coming from Action Aid. You can find more details on page 13. I mean, when we have our farmers being killed on their farm and also having to pay tax or some kind of fees or ransom before they go to their farms in certain areas that have been hijacked by terrorists, then it won't be surprising, Sele, that we are losing over 3.5 trillion naira to post-harvest. Law compelling INEC to upload results on the way. Statement from the Senate. Plans revision of laws of Federation of Nigeria too. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, the big story, amid heavy docket electoral cases overwhelm judges and the justice system, where we can see picture story saying about 346 judges drawn from various courts for electoral duties. 10 out of 21 apex court justices saddled with 6,884 cases. Judicial constituencies, 98 panels for 1,209 election petition. And then the fastest case from the High Court to Supreme Court may take average of 30 years. You can find more detail of this story in the paper. Rivers Assembly crisis persists as fraction holds separate seating. Confusion as appeal court certified judgment upholds Governor Abba Yusuf election. You can find detail inside the paper. APC warn of democratic cancer as NNPP backs Atiku on merger. You can find detail in the paper. Also, we have denying Kano Zamfara Plateau voters their mandate unacceptable. Obasanjo warns. Lagos State government says procurement of 440 million naira SUVs. Others in Denton with economic realities. Detail found inside the paper. Judge warned public against dropping charms in Lagos courtroom. You can find detail in the paper, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, 5,000 kilometers of pipelines vandalized carry laments. Factionalized Rivers lawmakers in separate sittings. Senate okays minority leadership in rowdy session. Nigerian companies signed $500 million power gas project with German firms. You can find details on page 25. And we have federal government targets $10 billion ship charter market. Fake injection in circulation, so you have to be watchful. You can find details on page 2. The big story on the paper, government asks Supreme Court to extend old Naira notes lifespan. We have nation risks return to currency squeeze crisis. APS court fixes November 30 for hearing. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4. Our challenges by service chiefs and IG. You can start with the details also on the front page and continue on page 28. And at the downside of the paper, federal government needs $35 billion for 30-kilometer concrete road. And coming from Wiki, I have saved 110 billion naira for FCT. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
Well, we hope with the money that have been saved, we'll see it
We'll
going
see
into
something.
those slums, we'll see it also into the education of those students, we'll see it going to so many things so that when you get into the FCT, Rachel, you know you are indeed in the capital of Nigeria. Not that you'll be working in the capital of Nigeria and then you will be shocked by some of the things you see. So we're happy Wiki is working. We're hoping that other ministers as well. We're seeing Umar, he's saying what he needs for the concrete road. So Nigerians will be keeping their fingers crossed to see a lot of roads construction, roads, projects coming up. So we really hope that all of this will come up. Well, Rachel, thank you for doing this
You're
program
welcome,
with me.
Sally.
Thank you to our viewers and also our supporters at home for keeping the date with us on this program. Until we come again, do have a blessed day ahead.